So I'm Father Kevin Oyland, and I'm here with Deacon Nick Singer, and we are going to discuss, this is our first run with trying to discuss just some classic stories, taking mostly from the Book of Virtues by William Bennett. And we are looking at the story of the magic thread, which if you have the book, it's on page 57 of the big book here. And the magic thread is, of course, just kind of it's a short little story about a boy who gets I guess it was like a little silver ball from this lady in the woods, and he just got tired of sitting through school, and he got tired of waiting for this and waiting for that, and he wants to marry, Lisa, and he wants to, all these things that he wants to do, but he has to suffer through all the boredom of life. And so she gives him this magic ball, saying, all you do is pull a little thread out of that thread coming out is your life, and if you pull it, it just zooms past everything. And so he keeps doing that for school, and then for chores or whatever, and he gets drafted to the war. He finally has to just says, I don't want to be here anymore. So he pulls the thread, and so he's back home, and he just finally realizes that towards the end of the life that he missed his whole life, right? He doesn't remember any of it, right? And so then of course he meets the lady again, out in I guess it was out in the woods. I can't remember if
out in the woods, yeah.
And then and she says, well, I can grant you one wish. And so he says, okay, I want my life back, basically, right? And so she says, okay, and puts him back to where he was before, and he realizes how good he even looks forward to all those things that he was dreading, previously. And so so it was a really, really great little story. I was kind of thinking like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a sad story. He's going to die, and then it was lonely and depressed, which isn't bad for stories. I mean, that could be a good lesson too. Not all stories have to be good. Some stories are tragedies, so, and we still learn from them. But I was glad at the end it was like, oh, it was a happy story.
Right.
Nick, on the subject.
Oh, I like the story. I thought, like you, I thought maybe it was going to end sad. But I was glad to see the boy. You could see him change over time as he was, getting more and more reluctant to pull that thread the older he got. And he realized how much of life he didn't want to miss, where in the beginning, when he was young, I think is probably true of all of us. We want to rush through and avoid all of those unpleasant things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's I was thinking as I was reading this, it is kind of just the common human experience that when we're kids, we want to grow up, and then when we're adults, we want to be kids again. It's just like we can't avoid it, perhaps, but there is a good lesson in there of learning to appreciate where we are in life. Even if it's a sad part of life, there's something to be said for we have to live that life, and we can't just skip over it. And if we're kids, it's good to be children. It's good to be a child, and even if you have to do all your chores and go to school and all these things, there's something good about that you'll never get back. And so why miss all of that? And why do we yearn for something that why do we miss the thing that's in front of us so often?
Right, we're looking for that big event, or he wanted to get to the end of the school day at first, and then he wanted to get to his wedding. And I think we can think that life is made up of these big events and miss the fact that life is right there in front of us each day in the ordinary moments. And I think that was one of the things that really struck me in the story is a greater appreciation of even the difficulties of daily life are what make life what it is.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a great line from Pope St. John Paul II. He said something to the effect of that the time has come to repropose to everyone the high standard of ordinary Christian living, right? That it's in the ordinary events of life that God is there, right? God is in the ordinary, not just in the extraordinary. So the extraordinary are great, but if you think of like how often do we go on like a trip, and then I hear people say this all the time. I've done this, maybe you've done this too, where you go on this big trip and you go to all these major places that are these tourist attractions, but when you get back, as you're talking about it with the people you went, you remember all the little details. It's like, oh, remember when we were walking down the street and we saw, something that was like not the thing you thought you would be remembering, not the thing that's in the picture book, but the thing that's most sharp in your memory is the those little ordinary things that happen. There's something special about those, even when in the moment they might be drudgery. Later on, they you look back with fondness of it, right?
And they might even be difficulties that you had. You might have had something negative happen on the trip, but you get through that, and when you come home, that's the story that you tell your friends, right? Oh,
Yeah.
the plane was late, or we were stuck in the rain, or but then you look back and you can see maybe something good that came out of that, but at the time you were focused more on the attraction that you were going to go see, or getting to the whatever it was, the concert in time, but sometimes
Right.
those struggles are more memorable.
Right. Yeah. It's funny how it works that way, and it's a pretty common human experience. That we think we want to skip over all the bad stuff, but in the, or what we think is bad, of course, from the eyes of God, it may be exactly what we needed. But we want to skip over it when in reality that's where life is being lived. As well. So I thought it was a really, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, this is a moment where maybe this year 2020, we would be pulling that string if we were that little boy and we had that thread. But, looking back on this time in our lives, years from now, we may, recognize how it was really good for us, or there was something in it, a grace for us somehow in this struggle that we've had, that if we would have pulled the thread and could jump past it, we might miss.
Yeah. And it'd be very tempting. If I had that ability, I'd be very tempted all the time. and you look back at, towards the end of the story, it's almost like he's still a kid. He's an old man now, but he's still a kid, because he hasn't really lived that long. He doesn't really have any wisdom. He still kind of thinks like a kid, and there's a wisdom in learning to I guess, there's like the old saying, I think from the book of Proverbs, teach us to number our days aright, or maybe one of the Psalms, teach us to number our days aright, right? That there's wisdom in knowing how to live. Like that's the real challenge. How do we, the art of living our life is probably like the greatest challenge of all in all this, right? That while we want to skip over, and there's a temptation there. Certainly, there would be a temptation if we had that, but it's good for us to be able to live through it all.
Right. Yeah.
Not try to, and sometimes maybe we even try to numb the we want to dole out the drudgery of life with whatever music, or we want to have something to have TV on in the background, or have we kind of want to find the ways to kind of numb the drudgery of life, and in reality, it's not necessarily always good for us, huh? I don't know.
Right. The TV shows that we watch because they're so dramatic, or the movies that we watch, they kind of inject a little drama into our lives, and they can distract us from the drama that's in ordinary lives. There is amazing things that happen each day. Even the unfolding of a flower in the morning or something can be very dramatic if we look at it that way. But sometimes we do distract ourselves by wanting to have that adrenaline rush of what's going to happen next in this TV show or in this movie.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I think certainly we do that. We try to add that drama in our life. And as you were talking, it reminded me of of course, I think people who know me know that I love G.K. Chesterton, and he would often have to he'd go for a walk throughout town, and he'd have to get call or send a telegram over to his wife and say, like, where am I? Because he would get so lost in just like the flower or the grass or things, because he was so in awe of the world around him that there was a wonder that he had, and he got so distracted by how beautiful everything is that he'd forget where he's going, and he'd have to find out, okay, how do I get home now? But now, I'm not saying we should go that far, but there's something beautiful about being able to take in just the ordinary that's around us, that is dramatic and beautiful, and it has its own story to tell, but we tend to we want that high action, high adrenaline rush of the show, the drama, the music that kind of gets us charged, but really we miss some things when we do that, huh?
Right.
So we also were looking at this little poem, or unless there's anything else you were thinking on the story?
Nope. I think let's go on to the poem.
I took the page mark out. Now I don't know where it's at. So the poem was a short little poem called The Vulture by Hilaire Belloc. And it's, I mean, it's so short that we can just read it, because if I could find it.
Sure, I can read it for us while you
Okay,
look for
go
it.
ahead.
Yeah,
Sure.
so it's called The Vulture. The vulture eats between his meals, and that's the reason why he very, very rarely feels as well as you and I. His eye is dull, his head is bald, his neck is growing thinner. Oh, what a lesson for us all to only eat at dinner.
It's catchy. And when I was reading it, I'm pretty sure I was eating some like candy corn, and I'm like, oh, this is a good poem. You know? And I'm like, wait, what am I doing? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a catchy little poem and simple little lesson, you know. But what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was going to say, when I got to the line about his eye is dull and his head is bald, I was a little, now what is he trying to say here?
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Good.
think it's a good lesson in restraint, right? And that's similar
Right.
to the story about the boy. You know, he began to learn restraint as he got older, um, and you know, refrain from pulling the string more and more as he began to understand what it was doing, because it is a big temptation. Just like, you know, eating between meals is a temptation, and we have to exercise some self-discipline in order to really not end up like the vulture, I guess.
Yeah. It's the virtue of temperance, right? The great virtue of temperance, where we learn to control. You know, if we always have what we want, you know, even food wise, that's going to kind of teach our soul to need more and more. You know, we're going to kind of train ourselves like, oh, I want this, therefore I have to have it, right? You know, it's good for us just to even just something between meals. You know, not that there's anything objectively wrong with eating between meals, but there's a good virtue to grow in by that sacrifice. You know, that self-restraint. You know, that we become people who are self-restrained in other areas of life as well. But it's also just kind of a fun, cute little poem too.
Right, yeah.
All right.
Good.
Well, yeah, we just kind of wanted to, you know, discuss a short little story and a little poem each week. So we'll send one out, you know, every Friday, and do a little video and just kind of discuss it, and hopefully other people are joining with us. But it's kind of it's a nice little fun distraction, I suppose, to be able to do something like this. So I thank you, Nick, for doing this with me. It's
yeah. Thanks, Father, for organizing it. And I would encourage all the families out there to maybe talk about this at dinner. That's what my family and I did this week.
nice.
I sent my girls and my wife the story, and asked them to read it. And then we discussed it at dinner one night and tried to, you know, get their reactions, what they thought. And so it was fun.
That's cool. I like that. That's a great idea. That's good.
Yeah,
I did that too when I was eating by myself. Just kidding.
Had a conversation with yourself.
Yep, I just switched over to the other side of the table. What's that?
Gollum and Smeagol.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, we'll sign off, and we'll see you all again next week.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Nick.
Yep. Thanks, Father.